Hi, my name's Zoe and welcome to my YouTube channel, Zoe Butler Learning How to Life. Today's episode is dedicated to focusing on the mind and understanding how the mind works in order to help us understand why we sometimes have so much difficulty breaking old habits, creating new habits, changing behaviour or changing our way of doing things even though we really want to. And why it can be so difficult for us to change the way that we act, change the way that we do things, change the way that we think and behave, even though we've promised to ourselves or to other people that we will. And I find that this is something that can frustrate a lot of people, is that they really want to be different in life. They're not happy with how they're acting, they're not happy with their habits, they're not happy with how they are basically performing in life day to day, but it seems like no matter how much they want something or they want things to be different, they just can't seem to make it happen. And there is definitely a reason for this, and to understand this we need to understand how the mind actually works, so that we can break free from this and work towards creating everything that we want in life and being everything that we want to be in life. So to understand the mind, it's really important to understand how the mind works. So first of all, we call it the mind as if the mind is one thing, if there is only one mind, but in actual fact there isn't. Within the mind there are actually two separate minds that are responsible for two completely different things. So first of all, you have your conscious mind, and then you also have your subconscious mind. So your conscious mind, we are in a conscious state of mind when we are purely present and aware. In fact, the word, consciousness basically just translates and means awareness. So when we are in a conscious state of mind, we are present. This is the mind we are behaving from when we're feeling inspired and motivated and excited and passionate. It's responsible for all of our dreams and desires. This is where those come from, and new ideas. You are acting from a conscious state of mind when you are having those moments of, this is what I want to create, and this is what I want to do, and this is what I'm going to do differently, and I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I'm going to start to exercise every single morning, and I'm going to eat this way, I'm going to start my gratitude journal, I'm going to meditate every day, and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and these are the things I'm going to change, and these are the things I'm going to do, and this is what I'm going to create, and this is what my life's going to look like, and it's so exciting, I'm so motivated, I'm going to go and hand out my resume to like 50 jobs, I'm going to call this place, do this and so on. I'm sure you get the point, and I'm sure you've had those moments too where you're feeling super motivated, super inspired, super excited about achieving your dreams, maybe creating new habits, doing things differently, and just becoming and being a person that you really truly desire to be. And then we wake up the next day, or we realize a week later that we haven't done any of that stuff, and it can be frustrating because in those moments it's like, but oh God, you feel it, you want it so badly. It's really truly in your heart what you desire and what you want to create, and it can be so frustrating when we pretty much just watch ourselves self-sabotage and we don't end up doing any of it. And there's actually a reason for this. Okay, which we'll get into in a bit. So you have your conscious mind, and that's what it's responsible for. But you also have your subconscious mind. So our subconscious mind is like our autopilot mind. This is where all of our programming is stored. So when this is where all of our programming is stored, and we are acting from a subconscious mind when we basically can do things without having to think about them. So programming for things like tying your shoes and eating, driving a car, basically anything in life that you can do without even having to think about it. So these, yes, definitely has to do with all of your behaviors and things that you're doing, but it also has to do with thought patterns, because oftentimes we're thinking about things without even having to think about thinking them, if that makes sense. also our beliefs. So this is all of our programming. And the subconscious mind is really important because it allows us to go through our day-to-day life doing various amounts of activities and things without even having to think about them. You know, as you can imagine, if you had to wake up every day and think about how to shower and how to brush your teeth and how to feed yourself and how to walk and how to talk and how do you drive your car and how to, you know, perform certain tasks at your job, it would be a very, very difficult existence. So the subconscious mind definitely has some incredible benefits because it allows us to do so many things without having to think about them. But here is the issue between the subconscious and the conscious mind. Often, the subconscious programming isn't in line with what we want and what we desire when we are thinking from our conscious mind. And the reason that that is the biggest problem is because the average human, 95% of the day, is acting from their subconscious mind and not their conscious mind. So even though you wanted all this amazing stuff when you were functioning and thinking from a conscious state of mind, 95% of the day you're going to revert back to old habits and old programming and anything that was stored and programmed into your subconscious. And often our subconscious programming is the complete opposite of what we want when we're in a conscious state of mind. And the biggest issue, or one of the bigger issues with all of this, is that when we are acting from a subconscious mind, we're not even aware that we are, because in order to be aware of something, we need to be in a conscious state. Because remember, consciousness means basically awareness. So this is why I'm going to give you a really good example. If you drive a car, you've probably had the experience where you've driven from A to B, maybe it's a half an hour drive. And while you're driving, so your subconscious mind basically is holding the wheel and it's driving, you know, it's stopping at traffic lights, it's going around roundabouts, it's braking, it's speeding up, it's overtaking, and it gets you from A to B safely. Meanwhile, your conscious mind was inside thinking about something, or maybe you were on the phone. So your conscious mind was inside thinking while your subconscious mind was driving the car. And that's why sometimes you can get to your destination and you can't even really remember how you got there. You can't even remember, you know, anything from the drive or what happened, because, you know, in order to be aware of what happened on that drive, your conscious mind would have needed to be there driving the car with you, not your subconscious. I hope that it's making sense so far. So this is why sometimes when we are behaving in ways we don't want to behave, we're not even aware of it, because those behaviors are often subconscious programmed. Let me give you another example. Let's just say you're walking down the street. You're walking from one end of the street to the other. So while you're walking down the street, you get a phone call. So you pick up the phone, and then all of a sudden, you know, when you're on the phone, your conscious mind is now focused on that conversation. It's being present with that conversation. It's thinking what that other person is saying. And so you're walking up the street. Just because you're on the phone doesn't mean you stop walking up the street, does it? No, it doesn't. So because your conscious mind has disappeared to this focus on this phone conversation, your subconscious mind is then going to take over. It's going to go, I know how to walk down this street, and it's going to carry you from one end of the street, hopefully safely, to the other end of the street. So you're going to stop for traffic, you're going to press the little button so you can cross at the pedestrian crossing, you're going to move out of the way of people, you're going to get to the other end of the street. You hang up the phone. Now, if I was to ask you, what do you remember from walking up the street? You probably wouldn't really have remembered much, because your conscious mind, the one that is actually awareness, was busy focusing on the phone conversation. It wasn't present walking up and down the street. That was your subconscious mind that was performing that task. Your conscious mind was inside focusing on this phone conversation. So this is why often when we're behaving from a subconscious level, we're not even aware of it. And this is why sometimes we have people in our lives that we're like, how do you not see that you behave this way? You know, I'm sure you've got somebody in your life that it's like, oh my God, they're so selfish, or they, you know, so reactive, or they're so this or so that, but they just don't see it. They don't think that they act that way. Everyone else can see it but them. It's because when they're acting from a subconscious state of mind, their conscious mind isn't there to actually see that that's how they're acting, if that makes sense. As I said before, the issue with this is that often our subconscious behaviors and programs aren't in alignment with what we truly want when we're functioning from a conscious state of mind. So a couple of, you know, some people would think that there's two ways to work with this. Okay, so do we need to start living more from our conscious mind so that we're always aware of our actions, and we're always aware of what we're doing, and we're always aware of what we desire and what we want in life? Yeah, you know what? That would be great. It would be really great if we could start living more consciously and being more present of how we're behaving and how we're going through our life day to day. But it is impossible in this day and age to live in the present moment 100% of the time. And it's going to be necessary for you to be functioning from your subconscious state of mind, because in society these days a lot of thinking is required. Your conscious mind is going to go inside to do a lot of thinking a lot of the time during the day, meaning that your subconscious is going to take over driving the vehicle, which is yourself, and it's going to determine how you're going to behave, how you're going to react, and the choices that you're going to make in your life based on the programming that's in the subconscious. So yes, it would be great for us to live more consciously and be more present day to day, but it is impossible to do this 100% of the time. So what needs to be done is we need to make sure that the programs stored in our subconscious are supportive programs, that they're in alignment with what we want when we're in a conscious state of mind, so that even when we're functioning on autopilot from a state of subconscious and we're not even aware that we are, the behaviors that are coming from the subconscious are those that are in alignment with what we truly desire and who we truly want to be. So in order to figure out how to do this, we need to understand how the subconscious mind actually learns. And some people are going to ask, you know, where did I get this programming in the first place? You know, who programmed my subconscious? How did that happen? Well, there's a couple of ways that this happened. So for the first 7 years of your life, your subconscious mind was basically on record. And this is where we got all of our fundamental, like, foundation programming. So for the first 7 years of your life, actually from the last trimester, when you're in the belly, to when you're 7 years old, your subconscious mind is recording. It's watching and observing every single thing that's going on around it, and then it's recording all of that data and then storing it as its programs, so we can just behave and act and think and do without even having to think about it. And like I said, that's great, because there's so much that we need to be doing just to be a normal kind of functioning member of society. There is so much that we have to learn and do. So that's why in the first 7 years we're just, you know, on record and recording all of this stuff and, you know, learning at a really quick rate. So we're observing what our parents are doing, what our neighbors are doing, what our teachers are doing, what other kids are doing, what society's doing. We're learning how to eat, we're learning how to drink, we're learning how to talk, we're learning how to interact with people, we're learning how to think, we're learning how to feel, we're learning what to believe, and all of this is stored in our subconscious. The issue with this is that often the programs we're being given aren't actually what we as an individual want in our life. They're our mother's programs, or our father's programs, or our neighbor's programs, or society's programs, you know. And this is one of the biggest issues, is that we get to adulthood and all of a sudden we have all these bad habits, we have all these bad behaviors, we have all these counteractive, like, disempowering beliefs and ways of doing things that aren't even in alignment with what we as an individual want and desire in life. We learnt it, we got this programming from other people and other sources. And so for the first 7 years, our subconscious is basically on recording all of this. And then after the age of 7, the subconscious learns in 2 ways. It learns through repetition, and it also learns through hypnosis. So when I say it learns through repetition, it's just basically anything we do enough times eventually will become a habit, and it's going to be stored in the subconscious mind. So let's just say you're starting a new job and you've got all of these tasks that you have to do day to day. So at first you have to really, really think about them. You're in a state of consciousness. You're in your conscious mind when you're learning new tasks at a job, and you really have to think about them and focus on doing them. Eventually you're going to do those tasks enough and repeat it enough times that that's going to become a program that's then put into your subconscious. So then when you come into work, eventually you're not even going to have to think twice about how to do those tasks. So that pretty much goes for everything. Any sort of activities or anything that we do enough times through repetition, it's going to become a program in our subconscious. And so it's not just tasks and things that we do, it's also our beliefs and also our thought patterns. So you think a thought enough times, then it's going to be stored in your subconscious, and that's just going to be your go-to way of thinking without you even having to try. So let's just say when you're in a conscious mind, you want to love yourself, you want to be really kind to yourself, but you've spent the past 20 years saying that you're ugly or that you're fat or that you're not worthy. So you've done that enough times that now your subconscious programming is to think negatively about yourself. So it doesn't matter how much you want to change that when you're in a conscious mind, your subconscious is programmed to think negatively about yourself. You function from that subconscious programming 95% of the day. So 95% of the day, you're going to revert back to those old behaviors and think negatively about yourself, if that makes sense. And this goes for basically every single thing we do in life. So in order for us to create change, in order for us to break habits, in order for us to actually be, what we want to be and become what we want to become, we need to make sure that what's put in our subconscious, what the programming in our subconscious is in alignment with what we truly, truly desire and want when we're in a conscious state of mind. So as I said before, there are 2 ways in which the subconscious mind learns now that you're over the age of 7. So through repetition and through hypnosis. And we can use these to create new supportive programs in our subconscious mind, so that even when we're acting and functioning from our subconscious and autopilot state, it is moving us towards our goals and dreams and desires and more desired way of being and acting and behaving. So the first one is repetition. So this is where basically we can use repetition and we can repeat something to ourselves enough times that it will become a subconscious belief and a subconscious program. So for example, just pick something you're unhappy with. So let's just say it is your way of thinking about yourself. Let's just say you're really horrible to yourself. You think really negatively about yourself, but you really want to start to be kinder. So your current subconscious programming is to be mean to yourself every time you look in the mirror or just when you're thinking about yourself. So what you could do is that throughout the day, you could repeat a really positive affirmation or statement to yourself. And if you did this enough times and you repeated it enough throughout the day for long enough, it would become a new subconscious programming, and you would basically tape over that old unsupportive, negative subconscious way of being. So you could repeat to yourself daily whenever you had the moment, whenever you thought about it, you could repeat, I love myself. I always give myself appreciation and treat myself with kindness, or something like that. If you repeated that to yourself enough times and for long enough, that would become your new way of thinking and being. So that even when you are acting from a subconscious state, when you look in the mirror, you will automatically be more kinder to yourself. That will be your natural new way of being and thinking about yourself. And we can use this with any area of our life. So basically any habit that you want to change, any behavior you want to get rid of and create a new one, any new way you want to think or new way that you want to act, literally anything in your life, if you make up a positive statement that is in alignment with that desired behavior, and you repeat that to yourself enough times and for long enough. Takes about 66 days to wire out an old neural pathway and wire in a new one, so about 2 months. If you were to do that consistently every day for 2 months, it would become your new way of thinking and being. That way, when you're functioning from subconscious, as I said, you would just do that without even having to think about it. So if you watched my last episode, you will see that this is exactly what I did when it came to viewing my body image and viewing myself and increasing my self-confidence. Although at the time I wasn't aware of this information about the consciousness, like conscious and subconscious, so I didn't even know that I was doing it. But now I'm so aware that that's exactly what I was doing. You know, a few years ago I was so horrible to myself, and I was so negative about my body image and how I viewed myself and my appearance, and I would constantly say really, really horrible things to myself. That was my subconscious programming. You know, I did that from a young age. That was my natural way of, you know, being. So I wanted to change this. So every single day for months, at least 2 or 3 months, I started to be kinder to myself. So every time I had the opportunity or even remembered to, I would say something kind about myself. Every time I thought something negative about myself, I would replace it with something kind. I did this again and again and again and again and again until I rewired my subconscious programming, so that even when I'm functioning from autopilot now, my go-to programming is to be kind to myself and think nice things about my body image. I've done this with different areas of my life too. So many different areas. For example, getting up early in the morning. Oh my God, for years and years I felt like I just wasn't a morning person. But when I was in a conscious state of mind, I wanted to be that person that got up super early, had a great start to the day, you know, had this beautiful morning ritual that like set them up for the day, you know, exercise and have a great breakfast and sit out the sun with my cup of tea. And, you know, I really just wanted to get up early, but I could never seem to make it happen, no matter how badly I wanted it when it was in that conscious state of mind. The fact is that when I would wake up, I would be in subconscious, or when my alarm would go off, I would be in my subconscious state and I would snooze the alarm. So even when I became aware of this information, it took me a while to be able to use this to my advantage, to be able to get up early in the morning. So I realized that, you know, our beliefs are stored in our subconscious as well. So even if you want to change something in your life, it's really important to question what your subconscious belief is about that thing. So for me, when it came to getting up early in the morning, you know, when I was in a conscious state of mind, you know, all I wanted was to get up early. But I questioned, what is your actual belief around it? And the belief I had around it, that I was constantly telling myself, that I was constantly feeding myself, was that I'm just not a morning person. It doesn't matter how much sleep I get, I'm always tired. And it doesn't matter, you know, what I do the night before or in the morning, I just can't get out of bed early. So even though I wanted to get up early in my conscious state, my subconscious programming was telling me that I wasn't a morning person, that it just wasn't going to happen. So I realized that I needed to rewire those beliefs and create new beliefs around that in order for me to be able to get up early. So constantly throughout the day, I started to repeat to myself, oh, I am such a morning person. I love getting up in the morning, and I don't have an issue getting up in the morning. Oh, I get up in the morning so easily without an alarm. I wake up with energy. I'm excited to get up early and things like that. I started to do this enough times that all of a sudden, I remember the first day that I woke up at like 5:30 without an alarm. Sun was rising and I had lots of energy. And I was like, this is weird, but this shit is working. And I continued it, and that has become my new subconscious way of being and way of acting basically every single morning, and it's been amazing. So that is the first way that the subconscious learns, is through repetition. So if you repeat a positive statement or positive affirmation which is in alignment with what you want, basically the opposite to your unsupportive current programs, if you do that enough times for long enough, it will eventually tape over the old program and replace it with a new supportive program. And then you will just automatically start acting and behaving and thinking and being in alignment with that new program without even having to think about it. It'll be effortless and it'll be easy. And those new supportive programs will take you on the path towards your goals and dreams and desires without you even having to try. That's what I meant. Okay, so that's the first way. Repetition, repetition, repetition. Second way is through hypnosis. So when our mind is in a state of hypnosis, or when it's being hypnotized, our mind goes into a state of theta consciousness, or you have like theta brain waves. This is the exact same type of consciousness that we were in when we were children. So when we were up until the age of 7, our brains were functioning in a state of theta. So basically in a hypnotic state. So essentially from the ages up to 1 to 7, we were being hypnotized. And our brains can continue to learn, or our minds can continue to learn now as an adults when we are in a state of hypnosis. And we actually enter this state right before we fall asleep. So that moment, or that time between being awake and being asleep, there's this like in-between state. And that is a state of theta consciousness. And so that is like a state of hypnosis. And we can use this state right before we're falling asleep to basically rewire our subconscious completely. And this would be my main recommendation. It's the easiest way to do it. So what I would recommend you do, and this is what I've done before too, is download some sort of recording app on your phone if you can, and record positive statements that are in alignment with things that you want to create and things that you want to change, and listen to it while you sleep. Because even when you are sleeping, your subconscious is listening. And this is an amazing opportunity to rewire the subconscious completely. I also did this in relation to me waking up early. So on my phone, I recorded something that said, I love waking up early. I wake up early, full of energy, effortlessly and easily. I am a morning person, blah, 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 things like that. And for quite a long time, I listened to that, as I was going to sleep, and then while I was sleeping. And then, like I said, eventually, it literally became my new way of acting and being. So my body, it's my body's job to act in alignment with what's going on in my mind. And my mind was saying, I love getting up early. I get up at 5:30 with no issue. So then my body and my mind would automatically wake up at that time with no issue. It's fucking crazy how it works, but it is absolutely amazing, and it has changed my life in so many ways. And I have done with this with so many different aspects. So another example was with my eating habits. So something that I really wanted to change about myself not long ago was my self-control. So I felt like I had no self-control when it came to food. And, when I was in a conscious state of mind, I was like, oh, I really want to be, somebody that's able to say no and that's able to control themselves around food, etc. And, I would have great ideas while I was in a conscious state about, how that was going to be my new way of thinking and being. But then, it comes the next day, I'm functioning from subconscious. My subconscious behaviours and patterns are to overindulge or to struggle when I am presented with so much delicious food. So when I started to become aware of this information that I'm talking about on this episode, I was like, I'm going to use this to change my behaviour when it came to self-control and food. So I was like, okay, this is what I want when I'm in a conscious state of mind. What is my subconscious programming when it comes to this? What are my subconscious beliefs around this? And I realized that what I was telling myself constantly was that I don't have a good self-control, that I just can't help it when I'm around bad food. It doesn't matter how hard I try. So even though I really wanted to have incredible self-control, I was telling myself over and over that I didn't. And that was my subconscious programming, was that I just don't. So I used this again, when I was sleeping, and then through repetition throughout the day. So I created a positive statement that was something like, I have incredible self-control over food. I eat, only when I'm hungry, and I can say no to food easily and effortlessly, or something like that. So listen to it while I slept and repeated that affirmation and that statement to myself over and over and over again, until, again, same thing happened. It became my new way of acting and thinking and being, was that I just had better self-control when it came to food. And I was like, holy shit, like this stuff really works. And so generally what I do now is every couple of months I pick something new. So what's something that I'm struggling with? What's something that I want to change? What's something that I want to do differently? What in my life right now is making me maybe a little bit discontent? Or, what subconscious programming do I have at the moment that isn't supporting me and what I want to create in my life? And that's what I work on. So I record something new and listen to it while I'm sleeping, and also repeat it to myself throughout the day. And that's what I recommend people do. Is it's a bit too much and too overwhelming to, pick 300 things and, play 300 recordings a night to yourself. So it is really important when you're doing this work to do it bit by bit. Just chip away at it slowly. So you can pick the first thing that's making you really unhappy in your life. Ask yourself, what is my current subconscious programming? What is my current behavior in relation to this thing I want to change? What are my current beliefs in relation to this thing that I want to change? What do I want? How do I want to be? How do I want to act? How do I want to react? How do I want to be in relation to this thing? Write down a positive statement or affirmation that supports the change that you want to make. Record it, listen to it while you're sleeping, and repeat it to yourself as much as you can day to day. Do that for long enough and you will be absolutely amazed what changes and what happens in your life. So this information I found can be incredibly helpful when we're trying to figure out why we just self-sabotage, and why we can't stick to things, and why we can't create the change that we so deeply and genuinely desire and want in our life. And again, it's because our mind 95% of the day is functioning from a subconscious state of mind. And all those things that you desire in your dreams and your aspirations and things that inspire you and make you passionate, they're coming from your conscious state of mind. So our goal in life, I feel, or one of them, is to bring these two minds in alignment, bring them together so that it doesn't matter which one we're functioning from, that they're matching, and that we're always going towards and working towards our dreams and goals and desires. Now, another little quick thing before I finish this video. I know it's another long one. I think that we should just come to terms with the fact that it is impossible for Zoe Butler to make a short video. Anyway, this can also really help us to understand the people in our life. Understand that the people in your life are also functioning from their programming. And I'm sure that we have people in our life that promise us that they're going to act differently and be differently and do things differently, and they just don't. And it can become so frustrating. And the reason that this is, and I'm not justifying anybody's behavior, but it just helps us to get a little insight into how people's minds are actually working. So when somebody is promising you that they're going to be different or act different or do things differently, they're probably in a conscious state of mind. Let's say you're having an argument with your partner. When you're in that argument with them, you're both in a conscious state. You're both very present, and you're both really there with the argument. And in that conscious state of mind, you might be listening to your partner say, like, you never pick up, your towels off the ground, and you're always leaving your clothes everywhere, and I've asked you this so many times, and, I just want you to help out around the house. I just want you to do the dishes. Can you just put your dishes in the dishwasher and not next to them? All those sorts of things. And so the person listening to this is in their conscious state of mind, and they realize that what they're doing and how they're behaving is behavior is upsetting their partner, and when they're in a conscious state of mind, they go, you know, oh, you know, I'm so sorry, you're right, I don't, well, this would be nice if they did, this doesn't always happen, but you know, you're so right, you know, I'm always leaving my clothes around, I'm never doing this, I'm never doing that, I promise from tomorrow I'm going to start to do better, I'm going to be better, I'm going to help you out around the house more, I'm going to, you know, do more chores, I'm going to be better at picking up my clothes or picking up my towels or whatever it is. Next day comes, 95% of that day they're going to be functioning from their subconscious mind. They're going to revert back to old habits, old patterns of ways of thinking and being and acting. Get home, have a shower, they're in a subconscious state, leave the towel on the ground, finish dinner, plate goes next to the sink, don't start a load of washing, and you're there going, what the fuck? We just had this conversation yesterday and you promised me you would act differently. What the fuck is going on? This is what the fuck is going on. Because, you know, it is their programming. It is their subconscious programming that is causing them to act in a way that is against what, you know, you've discussed. And it's hard because, you know, it takes repetition. So potentially after, you know, 10 years of you saying, I really need you to pick your towels up the ground, they might eventually get it. But, you know, I find that this sort of information does give us insight into why people behave the way that they do. You know, why people make promises and never follow through. Why we make promises and never follow through. You know, there's been so many times in my life where I've promised to act differently and be differently in a relationship and haven't. And, you know, it all comes down to our subconscious ways of thinking, being, acting, and just that programming. So I find that this information can really help us understand people in our life as well as understanding ourselves. It can help us understand why we self-sabotage, why we act in a certain way, even when we say we don't want to act in that way. And, you know, when it comes to relationships and other people, you know, it is really amazing if you are with somebody that is more open-minded. Maybe you can kind of share this information with them, and potentially you could maybe both work on rewiring some of your subconscious programming to create, you know, a happier relationship, so that you individually are acting, you know, and being in alignment with what you individually want, and, you know, as a couple, what you want. Yeah, so that is basically it. I just really wanted to, like, this information completely changed my life, hey, and like it changed my understanding of why I was acting the way I was and why I wasn't able to change certain things about myself or certain things about the way that I was showing up and acting in the world. And it's really allowed me to create some incredible habits and break some old habits that were not serving me and my highest good. And I find that, you know, I just want everyone to know that it doesn't have to be so difficult, and that if you use those techniques of, you know, repetition and hypnosis, you can literally change those subconscious beliefs and programs that aren't in alignment with what you want, and, you know, create and start slowly to become the person that you want to be, and build the lifestyle that you want to build. And if you're interested in this information and you want to know more, I recommend anything to do with Bruce Lipton, especially his book Biology of Belief. He is absolutely amazing. He is, you know, one of the people that have completely changed my life, and, you know, all of his studies have changed everything for me. So if this information is something that you are interested in or would like to know more about, I would definitely recommend looking into Bruce Lipton and any of his work and any of his books. He is amazing. But as usual, or as always, there will be a little bit of self-help homework at the end of this episode, just to kind of guide you further into how to start implementing this into your life, so that you can start to create some incredible change, and to rewire your whole way of being, so that you're no longer functioning from the programs you were given by your parents and by society and by your community and by your experiences. And you individually can decide what it is you want and how it is you want to be and how it is you want to show up in this world. Program your subconscious in the same way. That way you can just be that and do that without even having to think about it. So that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. I'd love to hear your feedback, especially if you start doing any of this. I would love to see how it works for you, because I guarantee it does. And yeah, feel free to like, comment, share my channel or this episode to anyone you think that it might help. But that is all for now. Thank you. See ya.
This week's self-help homework is to take a look at maybe what's going on in your subconscious versus your conscious mind, and let's see if we can make a plan to bring them into alignment. So taking a look at your current behaviours and beliefs and habits and things you want to change, and having a look to see if maybe your subconscious beliefs and behaviors and habits and patterns and programming potentially aren't in alignment with what you want when you're in a conscious state. So if you wanted to implement this into your life, this is one way that you could get really clear on what it is you're currently concerned about and what it is you want to create. So as I mentioned in the video, it takes approximately 2 months to wire out an old way of thinking and being and behaving, basically an old program, and 2 months to wire in a new one. So what you could do if you wanted to is to basically design a table that's broken down into months. So for example, over the next 2 months, February and March, you could focus on rewiring one part of your subconscious to support your desires and your goals. Then when that's become a new way of thinking and being and behaving and acting, then you could work on something new over the next 2 months in April and May, and so on. So these are just some examples that I've popped in here, but they can be anything that you want. What I would recommend is starting where you are most unhappy. So basically, if you're thinking to yourself, what do I need to rewire? It's literally anything that makes you unhappy, literally anything that is out of alignment with what you think you want and who you want to be. So anything that's making you unhappy right now, I guarantee you there is a subconscious belief or a subconscious behavior or something around that you could work on rewiring to create more happiness in your life. So what I would recommend you do is ask yourself, what are your current subconscious beliefs and behaviors around this? So a couple of examples I've given. The first one is overeating, perhaps. So potentially my current subconscious belief and behavior could be that I believe that I have no self-control over food and that I just can't help myself. My desired belief and behavior that I really want to store in my subconscious, and these are the things that our conscious mind really wants, is having absolute self-control, a strong willpower, eating only when I'm hungry and making choices that make me feel good. And then what you can do from there is create a really supportive and positive statement and affirmation that supports that desire. And it's important that these statements are I am statements, as if they already are true. So for example, you could say, I have a strong willpower and incredible self-control. I say no to foods easily and effortlessly. And then with this supportive statement and affirmation, you could use one or both of the tools to rewire the subconscious. So first, through repetition, repeating that statement to yourself over and over again throughout the day whenever you have a moment, or through hypnosis. So recording that on your phone or some sort of other device and listening to it while you sleep, especially while you fall asleep, but then you can listen to it all night long. Do that long enough over that 2-month period, that will eventually tape over your old program, become your new program, so that when you are functioning and behaving from a subconscious level, it will be in alignment with this new statement that you've created. Then when that's done, you can move on to your next one. So I've put another example in here. For example, maybe your subconscious belief or your habit that you want to change is smoking. And at the moment you believe that it's too hard to quit, your cravings are too strong, and that you need cigarettes for stress relief. Perhaps your desired subconscious belief and behaviour is you want to be smoke-free. You want to not need cigarettes to make you feel calm, and you want to quit with ease and not relying on different substances to deal with your stress. So a supportive and positive statement or affirmation could be, I do not need cigarettes. I can say no to cigarettes with ease. I manage my stress easily and effortlessly without them. You say that and repeat that to yourself enough times during the day, or listen to it while you're recording, and eventually your body and your mind will come into alignment, and you'll start being able to go through your day believing and feeling and acting if this is reality. Then I've given another example here, for people who potentially overreact. Maybe at the moment you seem to overreact in situations. You don't think before you speak, and you let it affect how you treat other people, and you let that negatively affect your relationships. Maybe your desired way of being is thinking before reacting, not allowing your sudden emotions to dictate what you say to others or how you treat them. So here's an example. You could go through your day saying to yourself, I think before reacting. I take time to process how I'm feeling before responding to other people in my life. You could also listen to that while you sleep. Eventually, you're going to notice that you're going to go through your day, and as you are in different situations where you would usually overreact, your body's going to start to respond differently. Your mind is going to start to respond differently. And eventually you're going to start to really think and stop yourself before overreacting. So there are a few examples. Obviously, they're going to be different depending on who you are, what's going on in your life at the moment, what you want to change, what your current beliefs are, your behaviours, your programs and habits. But this will hopefully give you a general idea of how you can start to implement this into your life. And I guarantee you, if you focus on rewiring your subconscious, change is going to be so much easier and so much more effortless.